Good afternoon. Could I have your full name, please?
Yes, my name is Gia. You can call me Gia.
Now, let's talk about the people around you for a moment. Do you spend more time with family or with friends these days?
Friends? Definitely. At least during the week. My family lives a couple of hours away, so I usually only see them once a month or so. But my closest friends, I see almost every weekend. We'll grab dinner or do a coffee somewhere local. Nothing fancy.
A warm, friendly British English host in his late 30s, a favourite teacher chatting with a student. Has the group of people you spend time with changed much over the last few years?
Yeah, quite a lot actually. Back in university, I had this big, loose group of maybe 15 or 20 people. Now it's more like 4 or 5 really close friends. Same age, but everyone's busy, so we have to be a bit more intentional about making plans. It's a smaller circle, but somehow it feels deeper, if that makes sense.
All right, thank you. Now, I'd like you to talk about a topic for 1 to 2 minutes. You'll have 1 minute to prepare. Here's your topic. Describe a person who inspired you. You should say who the person is, how you know them, what they did that inspired you, and explain why this person inspired you.
Okay, so the person I want to talk about is my first manager at the design studio I joined 3 years ago. Her name was Anna, and she was a senior researcher in her late 40s when I came on as a junior. And honestly, she's still someone I really look up to, even now. I'd been there about a week when I had to run my first real user interview, and I was completely terrified of it. She went out of her way to sit in with me, and this is someone with a 1.5-hour commute home, by the way, just so she could walk me through the moments where I was missing follow-up questions. After the session, she stayed an extra hour to debrief, and she never once made me feel small about the mistakes I'd made. The thing about Anna is, despite being almost 20 years more experienced than the rest of us, she was incredibly down to earth. She'd eat lunch with the interns, she'd remember the names of everyone's pets. Nothing performative, just genuine. And her style of listening, patient, no hurry, never finishing your sentence for you, has really rubbed off on me over the years. I catch myself running interviews the way she taught me, not by following a script, but by sitting in the silence after someone answers, because that's where the real material usually surfaces. I think the reason she inspired me isn't anything she said exactly. It's that she modeled the kind of researcher I wanted to grow into, without ever framing it as a lesson.
Now, let's talk more generally about people who inspire others. What kind of qualities do you think inspirational people usually share?
I'd say it mostly comes down to consistency, to be honest. The people I've looked up to weren't the loudest in the room, and they weren't necessarily the most successful either. They were the ones whose behavior matched their words, day in and day out. That kind of quiet reliability is hard to fake, and I think most people can spot it pretty quickly when they see it.
Has the way young people choose their role models changed in recent years?
Yeah, in some ways, definitely. Social media means young people have access to a much wider pool of potential role models than my generation did. You can follow someone halfway across the world and feel like you sort of know them. But I'd argue it's made things a bit more surface level, because what you see online is usually curated, you know? The people who actually shape you in real life still tend to be the ones you spend real time with.
Do you think public figures or close personal contacts tend to inspire people more?
Close personal contacts, I'd say, at least in the long run. A famous person might give you the initial spark, the I want to do that one day moment. But the day-to-day shaping, how you handle stress, how you talk to colleagues, that almost always comes from someone close enough that their habits can rub off on you, if that makes sense.
A warm, friendly British English host in his late 30s, a favourite teacher chatting with a student, conversational pacing, a light smile in the voice, natural contractions. Not formal, not lecturing, approachable and relaxed. Can someone you've never personally met still inspire you?
Yeah, definitely. Through their work, their writing, their interviews. I've never met half the researchers whose books I keep coming back to, but their thinking has shaped mine for years. The catch is, it's a bit of a one-way relationship. You only see the polished version, not the messy decisions behind it. So I'd say public figures can inspire ideas, but the people right next to you inspire habits.
All right, nice work there, Gia. Before we wrap up, let's go back and look at a few of the expressions you used. I want you to really lock these in.
Yes, please. I'd love to get these down properly.
First up, look up to. Now, Gia, when you say you look up to someone, what's actually happening in that picture?
I think it's like the person is standing slightly higher than you in your head. Not literally taller, but somewhere you want to grow into.
Exactly. The image is of your eyes raised towards someone, and the magic is, it's not just respect. You're saying you'd actually like to be more like them one day.
Oh, got it. So it's a bit stronger than just liking someone. It carries this idea of I want to take after them, baked in.
Spot on. And you used it beautifully right at the top of your part 2. You said, quote, "She's still someone I really look up to, even now."
Yeah, that one just came out. Saying I respect her would have felt way too flat for what she actually meant to me.
Right. And that's the band lift. Most Band 5.5 candidates default to I respect her or she is my role model. Both correct, both flat. Look up to adds the image and instantly sounds native. One thing to watch, the preposition stack is fixed. You need both up and to. I look up her or I look to her both break the chunk. And the object has to be the person, not their trait. I look up to her, not I look up to her honesty. One more to bank. She's someone I've looked up to since my very first week on the job. Try it.
She's someone I've looked up to since my very first week on the job.
Lovely. That's a clean Band 6 admiration chunt you can drop into any person prompt.
Next, down to earth. 3 small words, but they do a lot of character work. Gia, what's the image baked in?
I think it's someone keeping their feet on the ground. Like, even if they're senior or successful, they haven't floated up above the rest of us.
Exactly. The image is grounding, almost gravitational. And the magic is, you only say it about someone who could have easily acted differently. That's why it's a compliment with extra weight.
Ah, that's interesting. So it's not just humble in disguise. It works precisely because the person had reasons to act senior and didn't.
Spot on. And you placed it perfectly in your part 2. You said, quote, "Despite being almost 20 years more experienced than the rest of us, she was incredibly down to earth."
Yeah, the despite before it really does the work, doesn't it? It sets up exactly why being down to earth matters in her case.
Right. And that's the band lift. Band 5.5 candidates default to she is humble or she is a simple person. Both correct, both flat. Down to earth adds the image and the contrast you set up so nicely. One thing to watch, there is no article, down to earth, never down to the earth. And use it as a predicate adjective after be, she's so down to earth, or hyphenate it as a pre-modifier, a down to earth person. One more to bank. What I liked most about her was how down to earth she was, despite her experience. Try it.
What I liked most about her was how down to earth she was, despite her experience.
Lovely. 3 words, 1 image, all character. That's yours now.
Third one, go out of her way. Gia, what kind of effort does this phrase actually describe?
I think it's the kind of effort nobody required of her. She had her own path she could have just kept walking, and instead she stepped off it on purpose, for you.
Exactly. The image is of someone literally deviating from their route, which is why it always lands as a stronger compliment than just, she helped. The inconvenience is the whole point.
Oh, got it. So it works best when there's a real cost to the effort, even a small one. Otherwise, the phrase loses its punch.
Spot on. And you used it really well in your part 2. You said, quote, "She went out of her way to sit in with me, and this is someone with a 1.5-hour commute home."
Yeah, the commute detail was on purpose. It made the out of her way feel real, not just a phrase I dropped in.
Right, and that's the band lift. Band 5.5 candidates default to, she helped me a lot, or she did extra things. Both correct, both flat. Went out of her way adds the inconvenience baked in. One thing to watch, the possessive has to agree with the subject. She went out of her way, he went out of his way, they went out of their way. And the noun way stays singular, even when the subject is plural. One more to bank. He went out of his way to introduce me to everyone on my very first day. Try it.
He went out of his way to introduce me to everyone on my very first day.
Perfect.
That's a Band 6 generosity chunk you can drop into any person's story.
Last one. Rubbed off on me. Gia, when something rubs off on you, how did it actually get there?
I think it's almost like polish. The quality comes across just by being close to the person day after day. Nobody sat you down and taught it to you.
Exactly. The transfer is by proximity, not by lesson. And the magic is, the speaker can't always pinpoint the exact moment it happened. It just accumulated.
Oh, that's helpful. So it's specifically for influence you didn't ask for, but ended up carrying. That's quite different from being taught something.
Spot on. And you placed it beautifully toward the end of your part 2. You said, quote, "Her style of listening, patient, no hurry, has really rubbed off on me over the years."
Yeah, and naming the exact quality before the freeze really helps. The listener can picture which thing actually transferred.
Right, and that's the band lift. Band 5.5 candidates default to "she influenced me" or "I learned a lot from her." Both correct, both flat. Rubbed off on me adds the image and the slow burn quality. One thing to watch, the prepositions are fixed as off plus on. Drop either and the chunk breaks. Never rub on me or rub onto me. And use present perfect for ongoing influence, has rubbed off on me, to signal it's still happening. One more to bank. His calm under pressure has really rubbed off on me over the last 2 years. Try it.
His calm under pressure has really rubbed off on me over the last 2 years.
Lovely. That's a Band 6 influence chunk you can drop into any person's story.
Good afternoon. Could I have your full name, please?
Yes, my name is Gia. You can call me Gia.
Thank you, Gia. Let's begin by talking about hobbies for a moment. Do you have any hobbies that you do regularly?
I do, actually. I got into film photography about 2 years ago, and it's the one hobby that's properly stuck. The way I tend to get into things is pretty random, honestly. A friend gave me her old camera. I figured I'd just try a roll, and that was it. I'd say it's become the part of my week I most look forward to.
And how does it fit into a normal week for you?
More often than not, I'll have the camera on me on a weekday, just walking to and from work. Nothing planned, just being open to it. It's become this small thing I look forward to, knowing there are a couple of frames left on the roll and I might catch something nice on the way home.
All right, thank you. Now, I'd like you to talk about a topic for 1 to 2 minutes. You'll have 1 minute to prepare. Here's your topic. Describe a hobby you enjoy. You should say what the hobby is, how you got into it, how often you do it, and explain why you enjoy it.
Okay, so the hobby I'd love to talk about is film photography, proper analog film, not the filter on a phone. I got into it about 2 years ago, almost completely by accident. A close friend was clearing out her flat before moving abroad, and she gave me her old Pentax K1000, a camera that had been sitting in a drawer for about 10 years. I figured I'd just try a roll out of politeness, honestly, but that first roll completely hooked me. I think part of it is that I have a soft spot for old, well-made objects in general. There's something about the weight of a metal camera in your hand that a smartphone can't really fake. But the bigger thing is, film photography is the one activity I do where I genuinely switch off. When I'm shooting, I'm not checking my phone, I'm not refreshing email, I'm just looking at the light. More often than not, I'll spend a Saturday morning walking around the neighborhood with one roll loaded, 24 frames, no second chances, no preview screen. And that constraint is sort of the whole point. The cost per shot makes you actually slow down and look at things. What I enjoy most, weirdly, is the 2-week wait between shooting and seeing the prints. It's almost meditative in a way I never got from digital. By the time the prints come back, I've half forgotten what I shot, and they feel like little gifts from past me.
A warm, friendly British English host in his late 30s, a favourite teacher chatting with a student. Conversational pacing, a light smile in the voice, natural contractions. Not formal, not lecturing, approachable and relaxed. Thank you. Now, let's talk more generally about hobbies. Do you think people are getting better or worse at making time for hobbies these days?
I'd say it's pretty split, to be honest. People in their 20s and 30s seem to be getting much more deliberate about it, partly because work bleeds into everything now, and you need at least one thing in your week that isn't a screen. But middle-aged people I know with kids and bigger mortgages are pretty stretched, and hobbies tend to be the first thing that drops off the calendar.
What kinds of hobbies do you think are becoming more popular?
Anything tactile, I'd argue. Pottery, baking sourdough, film cameras, vinyl. There's a real pull towards slower, hands-on activities, partly as a reaction to how much of work and entertainment has gone digital. I think people are reaching for something they can actually hold, and a process that takes longer than a single tap.
Do you think expensive hobbies are more or less satisfying than free ones?
That's interesting. I'd say cost isn't really the driver. What matters more is whether the hobby has a clear feedback loop. Cooking, drawing, running, they're cheap, but you see yourself getting better week by week. An expensive hobby with no real progression, like just collecting things, can wear thin pretty quickly, in my experience.
Final question. How does technology affect the way people pursue their hobbies today?
It cuts both ways, I'd say. On the one hand, you can learn almost any skill on YouTube. I started developing my own black and white film at home from a 15-minute video. On the other hand, the algorithm constantly nudges you to whatever's trending, which means more often than not, people jump between hobbies rather than sticking with one long enough to actually get good at it. I think the best users seem to use the tech for the tutorial and then close the app.
All right, nice work there, Gia. Before we wrap up, let's go back and look at a few of the expressions you used. I want you to really lock these in.
Yes, please. I'd love to get these down properly.
First up, get into. Now, Gia, when you say you got into something, what's happening that the word started wouldn't capture?
I think it's that you eased into it gradually. You didn't just clock a start date. The interest deepened over time. Started as more like flicking a switch.
Exactly. The into carries that gradual entry. You walked deeper. You didn't just step in. And the magic is, it implies the interest grew on its own once you began, not that you forced yourself.
Oh, got it. So it works best for hobbies, genres, artists, that kind of thing. Not for jobs or relationships, because those don't really gradually deepen the same way.
Spot on. And you used it cleanly in part 1. You said, quote, I got into film photography about 2 years ago, and the way I tend to get into things is pretty random. Same chunk, 2 tenses. Past for the entry moment, present for the general pattern.
Yeah, that second one came out almost by accident, but honestly, most of my hobbies do arrive that way.
Right. And that's the band lift. Band 6.5 candidates default to I started doing X or I began X. Both correct, both flat. Get into adds the slow deepening texture that hobby answers actually need to feel real. One thing to watch, the into is non-negotiable. Drop it and you change the meaning completely. I get it becomes comprehension. I get on with it becomes coping. The phrasal verb only carries the hobby adoption sense when into is locked in. One more to bank. I got into film photography after a friend handed me her old camera. Try it.
I got into film photography after a friend handed me her old camera.
Lovely. That's a Band 7 hobby opener you can drop into any interest prompt.
Next, more often than not. 4 small words doing a lot of work. Gia, how is this different from just saying usually?
I think more often than not leaves more room for exceptions baked in. Usually just states the pattern. More often than not tells me you've thought about when it doesn't happen too.
Exactly. It's a hedged frequency. You're saying, this is the rule, but I'm aware of the exceptions in one fixed chunk. Examiners hear measured thinking, not just flat reporting.
Oh, that's helpful. So it lands as more thoughtful than usually, even though the meaning is technically pretty close.
Spot on. And you placed it really cleanly in part 1. You said, quote, more often than not, I'll have the camera on me on a weekday. Comma set, sentence initial, paired with I'll, textbook delivery.
Yeah, that one I've been practicing a bit. The I'll instead of I do makes it feel more habitual, which the phrase wants.
Right, and that's the band lift. Band 6.5 candidates default to usually or most of the time. Both fine, both single word. More often than not gives you the multi-word linker examiners are actually listening for at Band 7. One thing to watch, the word order is fixed. More first, not last, and there's no article anywhere. More often than the not breaks it, and often more than not isn't English at all. Don't pair it with another frequency hedge in the same sentence. One signal per beat keeps it crisp. One more to bank. More often than not, I'll work through my lunch break and eat at my desk. Try it.
More often than not, I'll work through my lunch break and eat at my desk.
Lovely. That's a Band 7 frequency hedge you can drop into any routine answer.
Third one, switch off. 2 small words doing big rest work. Gia, what's the image baked in here?
I think it's literally flipping a mental switch from on, alert, working to off, present, undistracted. It's not just slowing down, it's a binary shift.
Exactly. That binary is what makes it stronger than relax. Relax is a slope. Switch off is a cliff edge. You were on and now you're off. Clear before and after.
Oh, got it. So it pairs naturally with an activity that flips the switch for you. The hobby isn't relaxing in a vague way, it's the actual trigger.
Spot on. And you placed it beautifully in your part 2. You said, quote, film photography is the one activity I do where I genuinely switch off. When I'm shooting, I'm not checking my phone. I'm not refreshing email.
Yeah, naming the trigger with when I'm shooting was on purpose. It makes the switch land properly for the listener.
Right. And that's the band lift. Band 6.5 candidates default to I relax or it helps me rest. Both correct, both flat. Switch off adds the binary image and the cognitive shift in 2 words. One thing to watch, it's intransitive in this sense, no object. Never switch off my brain or switch off myself, just switch off on its own, and let the trigger activity, usually marked with when or while, carry the rest of the sentence. One more to bank. I find it really hard to switch off after a long meeting day. Try it.
I find it really hard to switch off after a long meeting day.
Lovely. That's a Band 7 rest chunk you can drop into any hobby or work-life balance answer.
Last one. Have a soft spot for. 5 small words doing real affection work. Gia, what's the image baked in here?
I think it's like there's a soft, vulnerable spot in your otherwise reasoned preferences, somewhere your defenses quietly drop for one particular thing.
Exactly. And the magic is, it's admitting the fondness isn't strictly rational. You're not pretending you can justify it on logic. That small, self-aware honesty is what makes it sound native.
Oh, got it. So it's stronger than I like, but softer than I love. And it carries this little, I know it's slightly irrational admission baked in.
Spot on. And you placed it really nicely in your part 2. You said, quote, I have a soft spot for old, well-made objects in general. There's something about the weight of a metal camera in your hand that a smartphone can't really fake.
Yeah, and the in general after it was on purpose. It broadens the fondness without losing the specific camera image right after.
Right, and that's the band lift. Band 6.5 candidates default to I like or I really love. Both correct, both flat. Have a soft spot for adds the nuance and the self-aware honesty in 5 words. One thing to watch, both and for are fixed. Have soft spot or have a soft spot too both break the chunk. And pair it with a concrete noun, old cameras, indie films, a specific neighborhood, rather than an abstract concept. The idiom wants a thing, not an idea. One more to bank. I've always had a soft spot for old jazz records, even though I rarely play them. Try it.
I've always had a soft spot for old jazz records, even though I rarely play them.
Lovely. That's a Band 7 affection chunk you can drop into any hobby or personal preference answer.
Good afternoon. Could I have your full name, please?
Yes, my name is Yugia. You can call me Gia.
Now, let's talk about food for a moment. Do you enjoy cooking at home?
I do, in a small way. I mostly cook simple things. Pasta, eggs, a basic soup. On the weekend, I sometimes try to make something properly from scratch, like a stew or a curry. But on weekdays, I take a lot of shortcuts, to be fair.
And has the food you eat changed compared to when you were younger?
Yeah, a fair bit. When I was a kid, our meals at home were a lot more home-cooked and slow. My parents really took their time. Now I order in a lot more than I'd like to admit. It's not that the food is worse, it's just less of a ritual.
Do you usually prefer eating at home or eating out?
Probably home, most days. Eating out is fun, but there's just something about sitting down at your own table that feels different. Plus, it's cheaper, obviously, and you can wear whatever you want.
All right, thank you. Now, I'd like you to talk about a topic for 1 to 2 minutes. You'll have 1 minute to prepare. Here's your topic. Describe a memorable meal you had. You should say what the meal was, where you had it, who you had it with, and explain why this meal was memorable.
Okay, so the meal I want to talk about was the last dinner of a week-long stay at my close university friend Mia's family home overseas. This was last December during my winter break. Mia's mom cooked this big, slow Sunday-style dinner for us on my final evening before I flew back. 3 courses, all home-cooked. We started with this thick lentil soup. Then the main was a really slow-cooked beef stew with mashed potato and bread on the side. And to top it off, her mom brought out a homemade fruit crumble with custard. The whole table was steaming when she carried everything in. Now, the thing is, every single thing on the table was made from scratch. Nothing from a packet, nothing pre-bought. And you could really taste the difference. We sat down, said a quick thank you, and then we were all just waiting to tuck into everything. For the first few minutes, nobody said a word because the food was that good. The stew especially was a hit with everyone, even Mia's younger brother, who's usually picky about anything with vegetables in it. What made it memorable, I think, wasn't just the cooking. It was the fact that I'd been staying with them for a whole week, and on the last night, they laid out this proper, generous meal as a way of saying you're part of the family. I really can't remember another home dinner that hit me quite like that one, and I've been trying to copy that stew at home ever since, without much luck, as you heard.
A warm, friendly British English host in his late 30s, a favourite teacher chatting with a student. Let's talk more generally about meals and how people eat. Why do you think family meals matter so much to many people?
I'd say it's mainly because eating together is one of the few things that still slows people down. You're not on your phone, you're not at work, you're just at the table for an hour or two. For most families, it's the one time of day when everyone catches up properly. Even if the food itself is simple, the act of sitting together is what makes it count.
Do you think people's eating habits have changed much in recent years?
Yeah, quite a bit. People order in more, there are food apps for everything now, and meals have got shorter on average. I'd argue the big change isn't what people eat, it's how. People eat alone more, at their desks or in front of a screen. The food might be just as good as before, but the ritual around it has thinned out a lot. And I think that's where the loss really sits.
Are home-cooked meals always better than meals at restaurants?
Not always, no. Restaurants can do things really slow-cooked dishes, complicated sauces, that most home cooks won't tackle on a weeknight. But I'd say there's something about a home-cooked meal that a restaurant can't really copy, which is the personal effort. When someone you know cooks something from scratch for you, that lands differently than even the best restaurant plate. It's less about the food itself, more about who made it for you and why.
All right, nice work there, Gia. Before we wrap up, let's go back and look at a few of the expressions you used. I want you to really lock these in.
Yes, please. I'd love to get these down properly.
First up, tuck into. 2 small words, but they pull a lot of weight in a meal story. Gia, when you tuck into something, what's actually happening at the table?
I think it's not just starting to eat, it's leaning in and really going for it. The plate's in front of you and you've kind of stopped being polite about it.
Exactly. The image is one of appetite. Chairs pulling in, forks down, no more small talk. The 2-word chunk carries the engagement that start eating just doesn't.
Oh, got it. So it works specifically when you really want the food. You wouldn't say it about a salad you're picking out on a slow lunch break.
Right. It needs the hunger to land. And you placed it well in your part 2. You said, quote, "We were all just waiting to tuck into everything."
Yeah, the just waiting before it really sells the hunger. Like the food was so good we couldn't get there fast enough.
Spot on. And that's the band lift. Most band 5.5 candidates default to "we started eating" or "we ate the food." Both correct, both flat.
tuck into adds the appetite and the lean in baked in. One thing to watch, the preposition into is non-negotiable. Drop it and the chunk breaks. And save it for food only. Never tuck into a book or tuck into a project. One more to bank. Try this. We couldn't wait to tuck into the food after such a long flight.
We couldn't wait to tuck into the food after such a long flight.
Lovely. That's a clean Band 6 meal chunk you can drop into any food story.
Next, a hit. 3 small words, often with a with tail. Gia, what's the picture when something is a hit?
I think it's like the thing landed cleanly. Everybody around it reacted well, almost without anyone needing to say it out loud.
Exactly. The image is of an arrow on a target, or a song that lands on every listener. And the magic is, it's reception-focused. You're not describing the thing itself, you're describing how people received it.
Oh, that's useful. So it's about the audience response, not the quality on paper. A dish could be technically good and still not be a hit if nobody at the table reaches for seconds.
Spot on. And you placed it really naturally in your part 2. You said, quote, "The stew especially was a hit with everyone, even me as younger brother, who's usually picky."
Yeah, the picky brother detail right after sealed it. That little extra proved it was actually a hit with everyone, not just me being polite.
Right. And that's the band lift. Band 5.5 candidates default to everyone liked it, or it was very popular. Both correct, both flat. A hit adds the target image and the group reception in 3 words. One thing to watch, the article is fixed. Never it was hit on its own. And don't grade it with very. Say a real hit or a huge hit instead. One more to bank. Try this. The new cafe down the street was a hit with our whole team last week.
The new cafe down the street was a hit with our whole team last week.
Perfect. Reception in 3 words. That's yours now. Third one, to top it off. 4 words, a comma either side, and it does a very specific narrative job. Gia, when you say to top it off, what are you signaling to the listener?
I think you're saying, and here's one more thing on top of everything I've already mentioned. Like you're piling the last detail on a story that was already stacking up.
Exactly. It marks the final layer. The image is almost of a cake. The previous beats are the cake itself, and this last detail is the cherry going on top. And the magic is, it tells the listener we're at the end of the list, but the best bit is right here.
Oh, got it. So it works best when the previous beats have already given the listener a few things to track, and this one closes the run with a final flourish.
Spot on. And you placed it really well in your part 2. You said, quote, "And to top it off, her mum brought out a homemade fruit crumble with custard."
Yeah, the soup and the stew were already a lot, so by the time the dessert came out, to top it off felt like the only honest way to introduce it.
Right, and that's the band lift. Band 5.5 candidates default to and also or and finally on the last beat. Both correct, both flat. To top it off tells the listener the stack is at its peak. One thing to watch, word order is fixed, never to top off it, and use it once per long answer. Repeating it within the same story flattens the image. One more to bank. Try this. The flight was delayed for hours, the food was bad, and to top it off, my suitcase didn't arrive.
The flight was delayed for hours, the food was bad, and to top it off, my suitcase didn't arrive.
Lovely. 4 words, the cherry on top. That's yours now. Last one, from scratch. 2 words, but they carry a very specific cooking story. Gia, when something is made from scratch, what's the picture?
I think it's like the cook started at the very beginning of the recipe. Raw ingredients, nothing pre-made, no shortcuts at all. Everything got built up from zero by their own hands.
Exactly. The image is of someone at the bottom of the recipe working all the way up. And the magic is, the phrase quietly does 2 jobs at once. It tells you about the effort, and it tells you nothing was pre-bought.
Oh, got it. So it works hardest when there's a contrast lurking. Like, made from scratch lands strongest if the listener knows most people would just buy the thing ready-made.
Spot on. And you used it really well twice. Once in part 1 about your weekend cooking, and again in part 2. You said, quote, "Every single thing on the table was made from scratch. Nothing from a packet, nothing pre-bought."
Yeah, the nothing from a packet bit right after was on purpose. It nails down exactly what from scratch rules out for the listener.
Right, and that's the band lift. Band 5.5 candidates default to she made it herself or it wasn't from a packet. Both correct, both flat. From scratch compresses all of that into 2 words. One thing to watch, the preposition from is fixed and there's no article, never from the scratch. And it really wants a cooking verb. Cooked from scratch, baked from scratch. Don't stretch it to non-food activities. One more to bank. Try this. She baked the whole birthday cake from scratch the night before, including the icing.
She baked the whole birthday cake from scratch the night before, including the icing.
Perfect. 2 words, the whole effort. That's yours now.
Good afternoon. Could I have your full name, please?
Yes, my name is Gia. You can call me Gia.
Let's talk a little about reading. Do you read very much these days?
More than I used to, I'd say. For a long time, it was mostly work-related stuff. But in the last year or so, I've been trying to make time for novels in the evenings. Usually about 3 a month on a good month. It's become a kind of wind-down routine, actually.
What kind of books do you usually go for?
I'd probably lean towards literary fiction, books that are character-driven rather than really plot-heavy. I've also been getting into a bit of nonfiction, mostly around behavioral science, but if I'm being honest, I always end up reaching for a novel before bed. Nonfiction wakes my brain up too much.
Now, I'd like you to talk about a book you enjoyed reading. You should say what the book was, when you read it, what it was about, and explain why you enjoyed it. You'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish. You can start speaking when you're ready.
Okay, so the book I'd love to talk about is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I read it about, I'd say, 4 or 5 months ago, last winter basically, during what was honestly a pretty rough stretch at work. A colleague had been recommending it to me for ages, and I just kept putting it off. But one Friday evening, I finally picked it up, and that was kind of it. I genuinely couldn't put it down. I think I finished it across 2 long sittings over the weekend. So in terms of what it's about, without giving too much away, the main character is a woman in her 30s, whose life has, in her own view, gone quite badly off track. And in the moment between life and death, she ends up in a sort of library, where every book is one of the lives she might have lived if she'd made different choices. She gets to step into them one by one, the one where she became an Olympic swimmer, the one where she stayed with her ex, that kind of thing. What I really loved about it was the small observations the author makes about regret along the way. There's one line in particular about how we tend to romanticize the lives we didn't choose, and that observation does ring true for me, probably a bit too true, in fact. It's not a complicated book on the surface, but it does something quietly clever, and it left me thinking about my own choices for days afterwards.
A warm, friendly British English host in his late 30s, a favourite teacher chatting with a student. Let's discuss reading more broadly. Do you think people read less now than they used to?
Yeah, I think generally yes, though it depends a lot on what we count as reading. People are definitely spending less time with long-form books, but they're reading throughout the day on their phones. Articles, threads, captions, that kind of thing. The shape of attention has changed more than the act itself, I'd say. In a nutshell, we're reading constantly, but we're rarely reading deeply.
And how do you think reading shapes the way someone thinks?
Quite a lot, I'd argue. Spending time with characters whose lives are nothing like yours sort of stretches the muscle of imagining other people from the inside. And over the years, that probably does shape how you respond when you meet someone in real life whose situation you don't immediately understand. It's not the only way to build that kind of empathy, of course, but it might be one of the more underrated ones.
Finally, do you think a book read in childhood can affect a person for the rest of their life?
Definitely. I'd actually go further and say the books we read as kids might mark us more than almost anything we read later. There's something about a story landing on you when you're young, before you've built up all your adult defenses, that makes it really sink in. I still remember a small picture book my mom used to read to me about a little girl losing her favorite toy on a beach. I haven't seen it in over 20 years, but the feeling of that story has somehow stayed with me ever since.
All right, nice work there, Gia. Before we wrap up, let's go back and look at a few of the expressions you used. I want you to really lock these in.
Yes, please. I'd love to get these down properly.
First up, couldn't put it down. Gia, what do you reckon this means in plain English?
That the book was so good you literally couldn't stop reading it, I think. Like, you didn't even take breaks.
Right on the money. It's a fixed idiom for a book or a film or a game that holds you so completely you can't even bear to set it aside. Picture it almost physically, your hand refusing to lower the cover.
Oh, got it. So it's a step stronger than I liked it or it was interesting. It's saying you are really stuck to it.
Exactly. And you used it cleanly in your Part 2 monologue. You said, quote, "I genuinely couldn't put it down. I think I finished it across 2 long sittings over the weekend." That landed beautifully.
Yeah, that one just sort of came out. I wasn't even reaching for it.
Which is the best sign. Now, here's the lift. Most candidates default to, "It was very interesting," or "I really enjoyed it." Same meaning, but those signal a Band 6 ceiling. Couldn't put it down is the 4-word swap that instantly pushes the texture up.
Got it. And is there a rule about keeping all 4 words in that exact order, or can I move them around?
Good instinct. Yes, the order is fixed. Couldn't put it down, never couldn't down put it. And you almost always use it rather than the noun. Couldn't put the book down is fine, but heavier. It is the more native rhythm, one to bank. Try, "The story was so gripping that I couldn't put it down all weekend."
The story was so gripping that I couldn't put it down all weekend.
Perfect. That one's yours now.
Next up, ring true. Gia, first guess, what does this expression do in a sentence?
I'd say it's something like feel honest or feel real, when something an author writes matches your own experience really closely.
Exactly right. And the picture inside the phrase is a struck bell sounding clear instead of dull. When an idea or a line rings true, it lands with that clean note rather than feeling forced or fake.
Oh, I love that image. So it's not just about being accurate, it's about it sounding right when you read it.
That's exactly the distinction. And you placed it really cleanly in your Part 2. You said, quote, "There's one line in particular about how we tend to romanticize the lives we didn't choose, and that observation does ring true for me. 2-word evaluation, no clumsy hedging, very Band 7.
Yeah, that line really did get me when I read it. It kind of came out without thinking.
Which is the best place for it to live. Now, here's the upgrade. Most candidates default to "it felt real" or "it was very honest." Both fine, but flat. Ring true adds the bell metaphor and an instant lexical range signal examiners reward.
Got it. And can I use it with anything, or is it really just for books and films?
Good question. It pairs best with ideas, lines, characters, observations, anything where authenticity is being judged. Don't force it onto physical objects or simple events. And it's always ring true, never sound true or ring truly. One to bank. Try, "What he said about loneliness in cities really rang true for me."
What he said about loneliness in cities really rang true for me.
Perfect. That's yours.
Third one, in a nutshell. Gia, what does this phrase actually do in a sentence?
I think it's a way of summing up everything you just said, sort of like in short or basically.
Exactly. It signposts that you're about to compress everything you've just said into one tight sentence. The image baked into the phrase is the whole idea folded down small enough to fit inside a nutshell.
Oh, that's a really nice image. I always just used basically before when I wanted to sum up.
And basically is fine, but it's a Band 5 default. Every script reaches for it. You used the better swap cleanly in your Part 3. You said, quote, "In a nutshell, we're reading constantly, but we're rarely reading deeply." A beautiful one-line summary.
Yeah, that one I actually planned a tiny bit. I wanted to land the answer somewhere clean instead of trailing off.
Which is exactly the right move. The lift here is that "in a nutshell" marks a confident summary turn, not just another linker. It tells the examiner you know how to close a long answer, not just keep adding to it.
Got it. And how often should I actually use this in a real Part 3 answer? Is once enough?
Once per long answer is the sweet spot. Twice in the same answer and the metaphor starts to flatten. Also keep the article fixed. In a nutshell, never in the nutshell or in nutshell. Here's the rep. Try, in a nutshell, the whole project came down to one design choice.
In a nutshell, the whole project came down to one design choice.
Perfect. Bank that one.
Last one. Stayed with me. Gia, what's this expression doing here?
I'd say it's when something keeps coming back to you long after it happened, like a memory you can't quite shake off.
Exactly. And the clever thing inside the grammar is the inversion. It's the thing that stays, not you that remembers. The book, the line, the scene becomes the active one, almost like an unbidden guest in your mind.
Oh, that's a really useful way to think about it. I usually just say, I still remember, or I cannot forget.
And those are fine, but they put you in the active seat. Stayed with me flips it, and that flip is the band 7 lift. You used it as a closing beat in your part 3. You said, quote, "The feeling of that story has somehow stayed with me ever since." Lovely landing line.
Yeah, and it just felt right at the end of that answer, rather than trying to start another sentence after.
Which is exactly where it lives best. The rhythm of stayed with me signals you're closing a beat, not opening one. Don't use it to launch a new point. Let it land at the end of an answer.
Got it. And is it always past tense, or can I use it in other tenses too?
Good catch. Past simple for finished experiences whose impact continues. Present perfect has stayed with me if you want to stress that it really still hasn't left. And the preposition is always with, never in or at. One to bank. Try, that one conversation has somehow stayed with me for years.
That one conversation has somehow stayed with me for years.
Perfect. That's yours now.
Good afternoon. Could I have your full name, please?
Yes, my name is Yujia. You can call me Jia.
Thank you, Gia. Let's begin with some questions about music. Do you listen to music often?
Yeah, pretty much every day. I usually put something on repeat when I'm working, and I also have music playing while I'm cooking or walking home, so I'd say it's almost always there in the background.
And what kind of music do you usually enjoy?
Mostly quieter stuff. Folk, indie singer-songwriters, that kind of thing. I'm not really into anything loud or heavy. To be honest, I've been listening to this same handful of artists for ages now, and I don't really feel the need to look for new ones.
Now I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you speak, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish. Here's some paper and a pencil. Here's your topic. Please don't write anything on the topic card. Describe a song or piece of music that means something to you. You should say what the song is, when you first heard it, what it is about, and explain why it means something to you. You have 1 minute to prepare. You can start speaking when you are ready.
Okay, so the song I want to talk about is Skinny Love by Bon Iver. It's a kind of slow, quiet folk song, basically just one guy with an acoustic guitar. I first heard it, let me think, probably about 4 years ago, during a really heavy stretch at work. I was staying up late most nights, and one evening I just stumbled across it on a playlist on my laptop. And I remember I had it on repeat for the rest of that week. I genuinely couldn't listen to anything else. In terms of what it's actually about, to be honest, the lyrics are pretty hard to make out even now. But I think it's basically about a relationship that's ending, where the person knows it's over but isn't quite ready to let go. It's very sad, but in a kind of beautiful way, if that makes sense. The reason it means so much to me is that it really pulled me through that difficult period. Whenever I was feeling overwhelmed, I'd put it on, and it would just calm me down. And now, even years later, it still takes me back to that exact apartment, that exact desk, those late nights. To this day, if it comes on randomly in a cafe, I have to stop what I'm doing for a moment. And then it just gets stuck in my head for the rest of the day.
Interesting. Let's discuss this more generally. Why do you think certain songs become so meaningful to people?
I think it's mostly about timing, actually.
The song that means a lot to you is usually the one that happened to be playing during a really important moment in your life. A hard time, or falling in love, or moving somewhere new. The song itself might be simple, but it gets tied to all those feelings. And then later, just hearing it brings the whole moment back.
Has technology changed the way people discover and connect with music?
Yeah, I think so, quite a lot. When my parents were young, they had to actually go out and buy a CD or wait for a song to come on the radio. So music was more of an event, in a way. Now we have everything on apps like Spotify, and you can listen to almost anything instantly, which is amazing, but I also think it means we don't sit with songs as much. We just skip on if we don't like the first 10 seconds.
Do you think older songs from decades ago can still be popular with younger generations today?
Oh, definitely. Actually, that's been happening a lot recently. There are loads of older songs that have come back through apps like TikTok and gotten stuck in everyone's head all over again. Songs from the 80s and 90s that the original listeners loved are now being discovered by teenagers. So I think a good song is just a good song, no matter when it was made. It doesn't really go out of date.
Do you think people will still listen to recorded music in the same way 50 years from now?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I think the way we listen will probably change again. Maybe it'll all be through headphones and some new format. Or maybe AI will start making songs that are personalized for each person. But I think the basic thing, putting on a song that means something and feeling something, that's been around for thousands of years. I don't think that part will go away.
Thank you, Gia. That brings us to the end of the speaking test. All right, nice work there, Gia. Before we wrap up, let's go back and look at a few of the expressions you used. I want you to really lock these in.
Yes, please. I'd love to get these down properly.
First up, on repeat. Gia, what do you think this actually means in everyday English?
I'd guess it just means I listen to the song again and again, right? Like many times in a row?
Pretty close, but there's a little more to it. On repeat carries the image of a playback loop that's been set, not just listens you chose one by one. The song keeps going because you let it, not because you keep pressing play.
Oh, got it. So it's almost like the song is on autopilot and I'm just letting it run.
Exactly. And you used it really naturally in your part too. You said, quote, "I had it on repeat for the rest of that week." That one phrase did the work of a whole long sentence.
Yeah, honestly, that one just came out. I wasn't even thinking about it.
Here's the lift. Most Band 5.5 candidates default to "I played it many times" or "I listened a lot." Same meaning, but flat, no image. On repeat is two small words doing the work, and it instantly signals lexical range.
Got it. So is there anything I should watch out for when I use it next time?
One thing, the preposition is fixed. It's on repeat, never in repeat or on the repeat. And use it only for audio or video, not for books or activities. One more to bank. I had that song on repeat the whole weekend. Try it.
I had that song on repeat the whole weekend.
Perfect. That's yours now.
Next, takes me back. Gia, what does this one do in a sentence, do you think?
I think it means the song makes me remember a time from before, like it pulls me into the past.
Yes, that's right. And notice the structure. The song is the subject, you are the object. The song takes you. You're not the one doing the work of remembering, the song is doing it to you.
Oh, interesting. So it's almost like the song has the power and I'm just along for the ride?
Exactly that. And you landed it beautifully in your part two. You said, quote, "It still takes me back to that exact apartment, that exact desk, those late nights. 3 vivid anchors in one breath."
Yeah, I could actually picture it as I was saying it.
Here's the lift. Most Band 5.5 candidates default to "it reminds me of." Accurate, but flat. Takes me back adds the time machine image and the inverted grammar in 4 small words.
Got it. Should I always pair it with a specific place or time afterwards?
Ideally, yes. That's where the magic is. Takes me back to that summer. Takes me back to my old apartment. The 2 plus something gives the trigger a destination. One more to bank. That smell takes me back to my grandmother's kitchen. Try it.
That smell takes me back to my grandmother's kitchen.
Perfect. Hold on to that one. Next one, stuck in my head. Gia, what's this idiom describing?
I think it's when you hear a song and then it keeps playing in your mind, even when you don't want it to anymore.
Spot on. And notice that stuck is the key word. It's not that you chose to keep hearing it. The song lodged itself in there. It's involuntary. Almost like a small splinter you can't quite reach.
Oh, that's a great image. So it's slightly annoying, not just pleasant?
Right. Usually a little annoying, or at least surprising. And you used it really naturally in your part 2. You said, quote, and then it just gets stuck in my head for the rest of the day.
Yeah, that one felt very real because it actually happened to me this morning.
Here's the lift. Most Band 5.5 candidates default to I can't stop thinking about it. Accurate but flat. Stuck in my head is the idiom every native speaker reaches for in 4 small words.
Got it. So is there anything I need to be careful about with the phrasing?
One thing, the preposition is always in, never on, and the body part is always head, not mind or brain in this fixed idiom. Use it only with songs, jingles, or short repeating phrases. One more to bank. That jingle was stuck in my head all afternoon. Try it.
That jingle was stuck in my head all afternoon.
Lovely. That one's locked in.
Last one, to this day. Gia, what's this discourse marker doing in a sentence?
I think it's kind of a stronger version of still. Like the thing that started a long time ago is still happening now.
Yes, exactly. And the strength comes from the bridge it builds. Still just plants you in the present. To this day reaches back across years and pulls the past forward with it. It's a small bit of drama used carefully.
Oh, I see. So it carries a bit more weight than just saying I still.
Right. And you placed it beautifully in your part 2. You said, quote, to this day, if it comes on randomly in a cafe, I have to stop what I'm doing for a moment.
Yeah, that landing felt really natural, like I was closing a loop in the answer.
Here's the lift. Most Band 5.5 candidates default to still on its own. To this day adds a sense of time passing and the feeling holding firm anyway. That's a Band 6 coherence move.
Got it. Is there a wrong place to put it in a sentence?
Yes, keep it at the start of the sentence with a comma and pair it with present tense. To this day I still remember works. I still remember to this day sounds clunky. Use it once per long answer. One more to bank. To this day I can't watch that film without crying. Try it.
To this day, I can't watch that film without crying.
Beautiful. That's yours now.